Okay, welcome very much. I'm very pleased that we have a guest with us to assist with the campaign training. I do try to find people that have, really good knowledge in a specific area of campaigning and, bring them on so that you all can get the benefit of that knowledge. So Elaine, could you tell us, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you can get underway.
Sure. So my name is Elaine. A lot of you know me online as Libertarian Redhead. I have a Facebook page and a Twitter page, so you may have seen me on either one of those. I have actually been a libertarian since I was in high school. I just didn't know what that was actually called. I knew what the philosophy was and what the principles were, but I wasn't aware that it was an actual political party. So I officially labeled myself as a libertarian in 2009, and I always said I was a little L libertarian. And then in 2017, I finally joined the Big L Libertarians in the Libertarian Party. And shortly after that, I got really energized about campaigning, and I managed to kind of have a perfect storm in 2018. I had the opportunity to move down to New Mexico for 3 months and work with the Elect Liberty PAC, who endorsed Gary Johnson's Senate race. And I learned so much working that campaign, and it was a blast, and I love it. I love my New Mexico family. We still talk. And if I could do it again, I would. But I definitely encourage anybody who has, you may be watching this after the fact. So if you are considering working for a campaign or volunteering for a campaign or with a PAC, it's a great experience. So I highly suggest it for anybody and everybody. Because until you really go through that process, you don't know firsthand all of the challenges that face candidates, and election cycles are all very different. Kara and I were just talking before she started recording about how wild 2020 is. It was already going to be a weird year, and now it's just gone off the rails. So I'm here to hopefully help you guys out, share some knowledge. I'm going to talk to you a lot today about texting and using text to campaign and to fundraise as well. I work for a company now called Victory Text, and we source data for campaigns all over the country, any state, any district. We can go all the way down to precinct level. So that gets pretty small, to like 500 voters or less. So we can see anything and everything. We can map things, and it's really helpful for candidates, especially now that we've switched over to basically doing exclusively data-driven campaigns all over the country, all the way up from like sheriff's races to presidential. So I think it's a really good thing to learn, and I hope you guys all get something out of the training.
All right, take her away.
Okay, I'm going to switch to the presentation. It is Google Slides, but I'm going to screen share it with you, and then I'm also going to give it to Kara after the fact. So if anybody's watching this later, you will also have access to the presentation. And let's see. Oh, I have to do the full screen first, don't I? Okay. Okay, so we're gonna view this presentation. So again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you to Kara for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I hope everything is really helpful for you guys and informative, and the campaign trail is crazy right now. So I'm here to help you. Kara's here to help you. We're gonna try to just all get through it together. If you have any questions, hold them till the end, as Kara explained earlier. You can write them down as you go, or put them in the chat window. Do they have access to that?
I believe so, in the participants waiting room.
Okay.
But if people just write them down and wait, then they can have interaction with you and
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do it that way. So just jot them down, and then we can ask them at the end. There'll be plenty of time for that. So let's just get started. Basically, I'm just going to do a welcome to the world of data-driven campaigns presentation. And the first question you might have is, well, how did we get to data-driven campaigns? Because they haven't always been this way. Well, I think the first really big breakthrough in data-driven campaigns happened with Barack Obama. He had huge success with mobile texting during his presidential races, more so the second than the first. But it really changed the landscape of electioneering completely. And campaigns of all sizes are now almost exclusively data-driven, which makes how you interact with voters very different than it was if you were running for office 20 or 25 years ago. Campaigns have adopted this method because, as you will, I'll let you guys read through that. For two reasons mainly. One, it gets results, and two, it allows for open-ended communication between the campaign and the voter. Previously, voters really couldn't tell you until election day whether or not your campaign or your message resonated with them. You could kind of do it through a poll, but it was still one-sided, to where you knew that they didn't approve, or you knew that they did approve, but you really didn't know why. And now that we have the ability to text voters en masse, 50,000 people plus in one text message campaign, they can respond directly to you, directly to the campaign manager, to you as the candidate, and say, yeah, this sounds good, but I have a question about this, or I don't really like this thing that you're talking about. Like, why aren't you talking about this other thing? Because that really matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of this instant, I don't want to say instant gratification, but it's this instant reflection of, oh, okay, so I thought that I was presenting myself in this way, but the voters are really interpreting it in another way. That's not what I really wanted. So it gives you the opportunity throughout your campaign to just consistently adjust your message to make sense to voters, so that they will be more open-minded to your points of view. And that's really important for third-party candidates, because we're typically the candidates that get the short end of the stick, and we don't get media time. Of course, nobody's getting media time right now. But if you don't have the money to spend on huge ad buys, your name is not going to get in front of voters. And it's been that way for many, many years. However, this year, we have a golden opportunity, because no one is getting media time unless you are a governor or the president or the vice president and one or two congressmen here and there. The local news is not talking about you at all. So that opens up a door for third-party candidates that we have never had before. And it also kind of puts other two-party candidates on edge, because they've never had to deal with that before. Like, well, normally when we do something, we get talked about, but now we're doing things and no one's talking about it. So what do we do now? So data-driven campaigns have really just completely revolutionized this landscape, and people are still figuring it out. And for campaigns and candidates that don't have a lot of money to buy ads, to do mass advertising, it's really helpful to be able to just directly reach out to your voters, get a response in return, and that helps you direct your campaign. So we all know the challenges that we're facing in 2020 as far as meeting voters face to face. It just is not going to happen, at least for a couple more months minimum. By then, it's way too late to introduce voters to your platform, your ideas, and yourself. And it is much too late to build any kind of relationship with potential donors or concurrent donors. So what can you do? You can text them. And you might be asking, why is SMS texting so important? You keep talking about it, but why do I really need to do it? So I'm going to play you this very, very short video. We'll probably only watch about a minute of it. It is geared towards businesses, but there's some really good statistics in the video that I want everybody to see. It's also going to kick me out into YouTube. So,
Ooh.
Sorry. And I forgot to warn you that there is music, so you might want to turn your speakers down.
Wow.
Okay, I'm just going to fade that out because the rest of it is just business oriented and has to do with how voters or how customers interact with sales. And that's not really what we're talking about. But the three or four most important statistics that I want you to take away from that video are that there is a 98% open rate for text messages and a 20% open rate for emails. So almost all of the text messages that you send will be read, or it will at least be opened and they'll read the first line, which is why it's important to craft a good message. But a 98% open rate is insane. And that has never happened with any other medium that we have used. The only way you get a 98% open rate is if you're standing in front of a group of voters talking to them. 98% of them are probably listening to you. The other one is that there's a 45% response rate. So fully half of the people that you text, almost half, will respond to you in some way. They may just say unsubscribe or stop or where did you get this number or whatever. But that also gives you a gauge of what your voters care about. They care about where you got your phone number, their phone number from. They care about their data privacy. So, and the response rate for email is only 6%. The third one is that 90% of all texts are read within 3 minutes of receipt. In 3 minutes, you can text several hundred voters using some of the systems that I have used. So in 3 minutes, you can talk to several hundred voters. You can introduce yourself to several hundred voters in less than 5 minutes. And if you're a candidate, you would be a fool to ignore that. So we've talked about the ways in which you can't interact with voters right now. So the first thing I want to, we'll talk about in another couple of slides, what you can do as far as meeting voters. But before you do any of that, you have to have a data set to work with. So we're going to talk about where to get your data, what's good data, what's bad data, and how to tell the difference and some of the pitfalls that you can face. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when you run for office is you're going to go to wherever the voter information is stored in your state. Some people, it's the Secretary of State, it's the Election Commission, it can vary. Most of the time it's one of those two, either the Secretary of State's office, Ballotpedia is another good one, which is just a total third-party research kind of think tank that keeps track of all election data. You might go there to look for your win number. You need to know how many votes you need to win. So you're going to notice you have over and under voters. So sometimes the numbers are not going to match up. And there's a couple of reasons for that. There are undervotes, which is when a voter will go through and they'll vote for president, vice president, or governor. And then after that, they just kind of stop. They don't know who to vote for state rep. They have no idea who's running for city council. They are just water board. There's 5 or 6 people listed and they're like, I don't know any of those people, so I'm just not going to vote. So they vote for the top of ticket races, but then they don't vote all the way down the ballot. So that's where you get your undervotes, or what we call drop-off votes. Overvotes are less common. Those are people who marked multiple candidates for the same office when they needed to make just a single selection. That happens when sometimes city council or county commissions, you vote for like 3 or 4 people, and then the top 2 or 3 actually make it onto the board. I'm not exactly sure how that works because it's so conditional depending on what state you're in. They all do it differently. Those are less common, but those also happen. So sometimes your data won't match up, and that's okay. That's the reason for that. The second thing we need to talk about is where not to buy data. We all know that there are ways to get data for free, but is it actually good data? So your data might be cheap or free, but it can cost you more money than buying good data. And that happens when you have data and you might send out a mailer and you pay for the postage and you pay for the supplies to send the mailer out, the envelopes and the marketing materials, etc. So you might spend $5 on all of that to send to a voter. Well, if it's bad data, that voter may have moved. So you're contacting someone that is a wild card, essentially. You don't know if they're even a voter. They might be registered. Maybe they're registered with a party that you're not even affiliated with, and don't share any values with. So you've wasted that $5 reaching out to a voter that will never see your marketing materials. And that's just not a good idea. When you're buying digital data, a lot of people like to go through local election boards. The problem with going through local election boards is that they don't go through the National Change of Address Registry. If their data is not fed through that, then that means they don't account for voters who have moved and have changed their voter information. So lots of local election boards have all kinds of old voter data that's just kind of sitting there in the computer and it's not really active, but when they give you that data file, it's all in there together. You have no way of knowing when the last time that file was run through the National Change of Address to clean out all the old data that's no longer good. So you may get a list of voters from your local election board that has 5,600 people on it. And you think, oh my gosh, that's so many people that I have to reach out to. When in reality, it might just be 5,000 or even less. So that can cost you money in the long run. And it's important to avoid that because we all have very tight budgets when it comes to campaigning. And the last thing you want to do is waste resources, which kind of feeds into the third point, garbage in, garbage out. If it's not good data that you're starting with, you're not going to end with good data either. So when you update voter info as you go, which you can do when you're doing an SMS campaign, you can tag the information that comes back in a certain way so that when you read a report at the end of the campaign, the texting campaign, not your whole campaign, you see that all these voters responded, I don't live in that state anymore, don't contact me anymore. So you can opt them out of future text messages immediately. So you may have started with a file with 3,500 votes or 10,000 votes, and you get 2,500 people that say, I don't live in that district anymore. I can't even vote if I wanted to. Well, now you have a better data set than you started with because you were able to fix it as you went along. If people get annoyed enough and you keep texting them and they don't live in that district, they will, every time you do a cycle through of using that data, they will hopefully get annoyed enough that they respond and say, I don't live in that district, please stop texting me. They're not always that nice about it, but we try. So it's important that you're not putting inaccurate data in on the back end as well. So you want to make sure that when voters are contacting you back, that you're tagging things correctly. And that comes with experience, volunteer training, or using a service like what my company provides, where we actually have trained texters that respond for you. Your campaign doesn't have to send any text messages. So if you have no volunteers, or you're just kind of doing it yourself, or it's just really hard for you to get volunteers together to train because no more than 10 people can be in the same space at a time, then it's easier just to say, okay, well, you do it. We have people that do that. It works out great. They usually like it. But if you're just, maybe running for city council and you only have to send 1,000 text messages and you just want to do it yourself, that's fine too. I'm always happy to educate clients if they're in that position and they want to send their own text messages, how to tag the data when it comes back so that they get a better data set than what they started with. So it's very important to not take your data at face value. So we're going to talk about now how to fundraise using SMS. There are a couple of ways to do this. The first one is the one-click call to action text. You've probably all gotten one of these before, and it says, if you are upset with high taxes in your district, I'm running to defeat incumbent, blah, blah, blah. Text low taxes to 55672. Seems easy enough. So what happens when you text that word, low taxes or taxes, to that really short number, that short code? You donate $5. So you can set up a platform to where texting a keyword to a short code results in a $5 donation or a $10 donation or a $1 donation. You can set it up however you want. That makes donations instant. So you don't have to wait for people to open an email because, they are only, 6% likely to respond to that email or click a link in that email. But with a text message, you're getting 90% of people reading that text within 3 minutes of you sending it. And that's going to work out a lot better for your bottom line when you're trying to fundraise. So the other advantage to using a peer-to-peer text platform, which in a lot of states is the only thing that is legal. You cannot push a button and send out 20,000 text messages all at once. It's illegal in so many states to do that. So that's not what we actually do. We do peer-to-peer, which means there has to be an actual person like me sitting on the other end of the computer, clicking a send button for all 50,000 of those text messages, which is why sometimes it can take a really long time to work through a list of text messages because there are so many voters in that district or in that state or whatever it may be. So the peer-to-peer text platform is really helpful because you can send individualized messages to a segmented list of donors that allows two-way communication. So if you did one of those one-click call to action texts and they got to choose what they donated, maybe you want to do a follow-up text to just the donors that donated $25 or more. You can do that. So it allows you to separate and segment your data in a way that makes it very, very helpful for you to figure out who to reach out to next. And then 3 kind of goes along with that. You want to have constant contact with your donors. You want to say thank you because then they're more likely to donate again. And that's always a good thing. So phone call thank yous and texts are much easier when you have the ability to segment your list of donors. And I don't think there are any libertarian candidates that are doing fundraising via text message. So and I haven't worked with any yet this year. So I'd be very interested to see how successful that is. If it's more successful than kind of our old fashioned Ron Paul-ish money bombs, which the Mises Caucus, they do those as well. I would be interested to compare the two and see which one is more profitable for a candidate. And I do know that on the opposite side of the aisle, someone that I know that works for the same type of company that I work for, they did a kind of best practice study on their fundraising using SMS, and they found that they had a 400% increase in what was donated because of those one-click call to action texts. So I really am interested in somebody trying it because I really want to see if we can have that kind of a return rate, because that would make a huge difference in so many campaigns all over the country. So if someone's interested in that, we should talk about it. So you know the ways that you can't campaign. What are the ways you can campaign right now? So you can actually petition digitally. However, it is a 2-step process. Petitioning digitally is not allowed in a lot of states. I know in Tennessee, when we did ballot access petitioning, you could not have anybody sign a petition digitally. That's still true in Tennessee. It's still true in most states. So in order to petition digitally, you have to kind of have more than just a one-step plan. You have to have a process set in place. And I wanted to show you guys what a friend of mine is doing in Tennessee. They have a ballot initiative that they need to collect signatures for. And what they are doing is they are directing people to a website. If you add the texting into it, basically how I see this playing out is if you have the website set up to help people petition, giving them the links to download and sign the form and then mail it back or what have you, you can take your data set. You can text everyone in your district that you think might be interested in signing the petition, and you can say, here's this website, and you can send it to 10,000 people. And if you only need 6,000 signatures, that's going to be pretty lucrative, hopefully. And they will take this second step to go to a website that looks somewhat like this. And you can choose how you would like to sign the petition. So there's nothing stopping libertarians from creating a website similar to this in order to do ballot access petitioning. So you can print, sign, and mail the petition. And if you click on that link, it gives you the download button. You just print it, and then it gives you the address right here to mail it to. In most states, I believe you have to sign a different petition for every county that you're in. And some also require a secondary state petition. So you can give people options here on kind of this homepage to which petition do you need to sign. So print and sign, then have someone pick it up from my porch. If you have the manpower to do that, more power to you. Make sure you know how to do it in a sanitary way that's not going to freak anybody out, because as all of you know, we're supposed to have limited contact with other people right now in most states. So they also have the ability to set up a non-contact signing station, which I believe, if Robert's here, he can correct me later. I believe that they're doing like drive-through petitioning. Like they have locations set up, and they can just drive through. You get handed a petition in the car, you sign it, you hand it back to them, and everybody's wearing gloves, and it's all safe. So there is a way that you can petition digitally, although it does take some planning. So I did want to tell you guys that that is a possibility, because I know a lot of people are struggling with how to get ballot access right now. And I think that a system like that could solve a lot of problems. So the second thing is you can have a conversation with your voters. This cycle is not just about the issues. We initially thought it was going to be just about the issues, but now it's about people in your community. Lots of people in your communities are struggling. And it's a really good, I hate to say a tactic, because we're all, I think, very empathetic people. It's a really great thing to just check in with them and just say, how are you? I know that this is a very stressful time for you, and I hope you're doing okay. I hope that isolation hasn't been too hard for you. And if there's anything that you need, please let me know, and I will try to connect you with other community resources that can help you. As a candidate, that is huge, because you are running to serve those people. So what better way to show them that you are very interested in serving their needs than to do it without having to be elected? Just do it. It's just being a decent human being. So that's my personal advice, but I think having an open-ended conversation with voters is very important right now, because a lot of people in a lot of different communities are very stressed for various reasons. They have restricted access to food. They may not be working right now. They and their partner or spouse may not be working right now. They may have no income coming into their house at all. And that is extremely stressful, considering the number of people in the United States that, one, live paycheck to paycheck, and two, may not have a savings account at all. That's a very large number of people. So chances are there are people in your community that are struggling with those things. It's a great time to just check in with them. And you can do that with data. It makes it easier. And then you can, so 3 kind of goes with 1. You can direct them via a text message to a website or more information about you as a candidate. So you can include a link in your text to your campaign website, which hopefully has a donate button already installed on that very front page, and it's flashing and it's bright and it's very easy to find, because then that will hopefully entice them to donate if they like what you have to say. Or you could link them to a news article. You could link them to a white paper. I don't necessarily suggest doing that, but a newspaper article that's positive about your campaign or you as a candidate would be great. Your campaign website works too. And that helps them do their own research. Lots of people aren't going to work right now. They have a little bit more time on their hands, and they're probably a lot more likely to read through your campaign website when they have time. So the other thing that you can campaign using SMS is to get out the vote. Because of everything that's going on in our communities right now, local election boards and state election boards are changing the way that you vote. They are considering it. They're changing the requirements for absentee ballots or early voting. They are moving primary dates around. They might be moving general election dates around, or who knows what. I hope that they don't move general election dates around. That would be ridiculous. But everything is changing, and everybody has a lot of things to pay attention to. So get out the vote text reminders are critical. They've always been critical. Ever since we've started doing them, we've seen how it does actually help people get to the polls early. And third-party candidates do better in early voting and mail-in ballots than the other candidates do. Historically, independents and other third-party candidates have a lower voter turnout percentage-wise than any other party. So if we make it easier for voters who agree with our candidates to vote, then that's going to give you a higher voter turnout, and that's always good. So consider giving people information on how they can vote is very, very important this year. And that may be true going forward permanently. We don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So I'm done. If you guys have any questions at all, now is the time that we're going to open that up. I'm going to stop my screen sharing. And
okay, and we are starting to admit all of the participants.
Okay.
And if they, and I'll start unmuting so that I'll unmute all, and then please mute yourself unless you have a specific question to ask. But if anyone has questions, oh, Mike, I'm going to mute you. Get a little bit of
There's a lot of feedback on your
feedback.
mic.
There we go. Okay. If anyone does have any questions, please feel free to ask. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to stop the recording.